but then on the lower half of the screen, you see the timeline, and you see them all the edits that went into the sound design specifically. And it's like, oh, they're so hardworking. I know I had the patience to do all that.
I'm like, my timeline has never looked like that. Maybe my upper one, but my bottom one on sound never looked like those, man. All right, welcome to episode 6 of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. That's E. Today we're going to be talking about capturing the atmosphere, like sound design and sports videography. So the idea is to show what kind of roles sound has in sports videos, the importance of like audio quality, background noise, crowd noise, important impact moments. So, E.
Yes.
You have a sports sound effect package, right?
Yeah, I was going to say you didn't mention sound effects.
Well, that's why I was bringing you right in. I'm bringing you right in right away.
I like your style.
How important are sound effect packages when you're editing? Like how does that make your editing flow easier, having a sound effect package that you can count on?
Well, I think they're very important. And there's something that I discovered much later in my career. I don't think we've ever used sound effects when I was at the Canadians with you. It wasn't really a thing back then. Not that we needed it, I guess, for the content we were producing at the time. But I think they're very important because when you're filming sports, most of the time there's a lot of noise around you. So whether if you're filming amateur sports, it's parents next to you, screaming, making noise, whatever. And otherwise, even at a professional level, it's music. It's especially with basketball where there's music all the time. So sound effects are a way to maybe get rid of. You don't really want to totally get rid of the original audio, like you want to use it for the atmosphere and the actual sort of crowd reaction to what's happening, but especially because you're so far from the action, to get that, that stick hitting the puck or that ball being caught or that bat hitting a ball, something like that, it just makes the video so much. I always say like it makes your video way more dynamic. And even though you're using like quote unquote like fake sound effects, it makes the video feel a lot more real because now every action, like in real life, when I see someone, especially impacts, like every time I see any type of impact, there's a sound that comes with it. So now if I'm watching this and there's no sound, it doesn't feel as real. It feels a bit weird. So with sound effects, you can bring that realness to your videos and it just gives it, and it helps a lot with storytelling as well. So I'm a big fan. What about you? Do you use them?
Yeah, I use sound effects all the time, but it's interesting how you mentioned when we first started working together, we didn't always use sound effects. And I feel like as you become a better editor or a better storyteller, that's when you start adding those little elements. And now, like, I open up any project on my computer, it automatically I'll have like eight audio tracks ready to go just for sound effects. And there's times where I've used a lot more, but I always at least start with a minimum of 8. And it really, really enhances your video. Now, like I said, like it wasn't always my first reaction was to add those extra sounds, but it's crazy when you just add a little riser here, or you add a little bit of emotion, or just a hit. Like okay, you captured the original sound, but when you add a sound effect for the hit exactly where you want it, exactly the level you want it, it really, really makes your video pop. Now, when you made your sound effect package, how did you pick the sound effects? You picked like your favorite ones, or you kind of noticed what people were looking for? How did you go about that?
Well, a bit of both, I guess. I made a list basically for each sport. And I first of all decided that I would, instead of doing like a back for basketball, a back for football, I would just do, because there were already a few packs here and there for specific sports. So I figured my way to stand out from the crowd, if you will, was to have one pack that would be for all sports videographers. So you buy this pack and you're set for life, hopefully. So I think there's 12 different sports. Not I think there are 12 different sports in the back. So I picked the 12 most popular sports and made a list for each sport of what would make sense. And from there, I just went from there and try to have either find or create or get someone to create for me. It's just a mix of all these different things that I did to fill this. I had the Excel sheet where like, yeah, I've got this, I've got that, and also having various, like you don't just want one sound effect of a ball going through the net or one sound effect of a body check, or you want at least a bit of variety, because there's no point of using sound effects if you're always using the same one. Then it sounds very repetitive and we notice that it's fake, and then it just defeats the whole purpose. So yeah, that's why I ended up with, I think there's about 700 plus sound effects in the back. And spoiler alert, I am working on an updated version, so not too sure when that will come out, but that's the plan anyway. Add a few more things, and but yeah, it's to what's crazy about it is that I thought that I knew like sound effects. There's a reason why I did the back. Like I knew it was something that sports videographers like to use, but I was very surprised how it's outselling, I'm pretty sure, everything else on my website. Like I thought visual effects would be way more popular because people associate video to visual effect, to visual, and therefore visual effects would be more popular than sound effects. But it's actually the opposite. I don't know. It's because they're easier to understand and to use, and it's sort of an easy fix for people, or it's because their audio is so it's hard as a sports videographer, especially if you got like a budget sort of kit to produce like high quality audio. So sound effects is a cheap way to make up for that. So yeah, I don't know what the reason is, but yeah, they're very, sound effects are very popular in sports videography.
Well, it takes time to build your own library of sound effects. Like honestly, like I have subscriptions for audio subscriptions and stuff, and I've downloaded sound effects, and then I keep them in a folder on my hard drive named sound effects, and I keep my go-to there. But when you have a package that you could just go and get, and you have all that there, for sure, it's so much time saving. I'm sure that's one of the main reasons why it's doing so well.
Yeah, definitely. It was the same for me. That was probably one of the reason that got me started with that idea, was that like, yeah, I would, like you, would go to all these subscription sort of sites for sound effects and music, but sports was very underserved, and usually, yeah, there's like one of this and one of that, so you're using the same one every time. It's yeah, and you're always looking, so maybe I'll find something different, but then it sounds like super cartoony or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I could see a niche where I could do something specifically for sports videographers, and it would be like a one-off. Like you buy it once, you've got everything, you're set, and you don't have to go on all these sites every single time you're making a video hoping to find a different sound effect. So yeah, no, it's a cool. I personally, I think, yeah, sound design is just as important as video editing. Like I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later, but yeah, it is a huge part of my editing style.
I actually find sound design harder to edit than the actual edit, because I'm editing, like I'm a visual person, right? Or I'm sure you are too. Seeing, you know what shot looks good, the what play is big, but adding the right sound effect sometimes is tough, and to have the right sound effect that goes with it, it's not easy. Sometimes I'll try stuff and I'm like, no, this is horrible. I gotta take it out, or it's too much, or I'm lowering it a little too much, or it's not coming in with the music,
Well, how do you go about it? Do you try to make your video as sort of real as possible, like I was sort of talking about earlier, or do you try to find like weird sound effects that are more like cinematic and may not be actual sports related sound effects, but sort of give your video an atmosphere of some sort?
So it varies. I do try to stay real. I really do. But like, I like the newer trends where people are using like risers for the tension, or, I always did hits on the impact and stuff like that. But also swooshes are like a go-to, right? But you can overdo swooshes. So it's like there's a fine line I find for swooshes, but I find adding the risers in that really, really effective. And you can blend it with any song. Like that's the only thing that I use that's really not from the sport. I mean, don't get me wrong, the sound effects aren't all filmed that day. Like, it's not real sound, but there's sound effects that go with the sport I'm doing. Now, I've never gone to, say, like a hockey game and saying, okay, I want to capture this sound. Have you? Because I know some guys who have gone and they actually go and they're like, okay, well, today I'm filming for sound bites, like all these little tidbits of sound that we're looking for. I've never done that. Have you?
Well, I have when I was creating the pack, especially with sports that I was, well, because it's harder with, like, for instance, like rugby or sports like that, you're pretty far away. So, yeah, I have a good shotgun mic, but it's not like a NFL broadcast with the whole plastic thing around it. So it's hard to isolate, audio that's very far away. But yeah, I did do a bit of that with the sports that I could, mainly basketball and hockey. I think I did as well. Even golf. But yeah, it is helpful, because if you don't want to, first of all, either if you don't want to buy it back, or if you want your sound effects to be unique, that's how you do it. And also, like, don't underestimate like Foley. Like sound effects don't have to be the actual real thing. Like, most of the sound effects that we hear in movies are done with completely different, like, a bone breaking would be like a celery, or they use these, like, they'll use all these different things to create sounds that are completely other things, and you can do the same with sports, and the same thing with my back, actually. Like, if I'm like a hockey swing, I'll use a golf swing from my pack. Or if you want, like, if you're editing football, nothing stopping you from going into the rugby pack and using some of those sounds, because it's very similar. So you can't just limit yourself to, like, oh, it's football, then it has to be football. Like, you can find all these different sound effects that are totally different but sound the same.
When I'm saying editing a hockey video, say like a minor hockey, right? I know every rink has their own horn, their own goal thing. I always try to include that original aspect into it. But most of it, one of the hardest parts I find in sports editing is the crowd noises. Because some of these packs, I'm not saying yours, but some of the packs, the crowd noises are very muffled, very, like, they're not that great. But when you're there, you don't always get good crowd noise too when you're at a live event, because I'm close to the glass, so it's bouncing off the glass and coming back to my mic, so I'm not getting the crowd. I find that hard to have, like, realistic crowd noise. So I do have a couple that I've worked on that are my go-to. But crowd noise for me is always tricky. It's always a lot of work, I find, especially, to have it at the right moment and have it sound real.
Yeah, no, it's true. I haven't done much hockey, so I don't have, like, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying about the audio bouncing off the glass, which I've never really had to deal with. But it does, for me, that's probably the part that I try to keep the real audio from that game, because I always feel if I try to add, like, a fake cheer, it's probably just me that sees it. But, like, I can tell that it's either underwhelming compared to what's going on in the visual, or the opposite, where it's like, sounds like a full stadium when really it's just like a local arena. So it's hard to get that perfect, amount of people with the exact same excitement that you see in the video. So if I can, I'll try to use the real one just for that reason. But yeah, it is a tricky atmosphere. Is always tricky. That's why I like to have a bass that's just the actual audio. It's probably going to be way lower than everything else, but I like to keep it just so that those little sounds are real and they're in sync with what's going on in the video.
Well, yeah, I always try to have, like, an ambient noise even under my track, of the actual environment. Now, 9 out of 10 times that ambient noise is fake. Like, especially if it's hockey, like skating and stuff like that, I'll add in that ambient noise. That I find sound effects are very, very good for. If I'm doing a warm-up, say like a basketball, like, we'll go into basketball, When you're filming warm up, then it's easy to get nice ambient noise. You get the sneakers squeaking. You get a lot of swooshes, stuff like that. It's good.
So where do you put the limit though into like what, like when you're using sound effects for ambient noise, like do you put all the sneakers, all the balls that are bouncing, where do you draw the line into what makes the cut and what doesn't?
I'll break it up in sections. Like it's not the whole time. Like I'll change the ambient noise, to cheering or to maybe some if I have a close up of a guy, I'll add in breathing as a slow, low ambient noise, stuff like that. Like I'll switch it up. I'm not going to just throw one track on and be like, all right, go. But I'll have sections for it throughout the edit. But I do want to hear something else except for just the main track.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of main tracks, now when you're doing videos for clients or you're doing videos for, say, personal, it's a lot easier to use, hip hop or mainstream music. But people don't understand how challenging it is to find good tracks that are royalty free.
True.
Because it's not easy, especially if you want to maybe monetize it or you want to promote a little more. Because right now on TikTok's music's getting removed like crazy. What are you doing most of the time? Are you using mainstream stuff? Are you going with some more generic stuff, some royalty free stuff?
Well, Instagram, I'm using mainstream stuff, usually whatever, but it's if you want to be sure that there's not going to be any issues, just have a look in Instagram. If that track is available, then that means there won't be any issue because they've got some licensing deal going. But YouTube is a different beast, and Facebook as well. It can be hit and miss. So with those two, definitely I'll go royalty free. So I've got 2 subscription. No, that's not true. I've got 3, but the third one I haven't used in a very long time, which is Melody. It's an Australian company, and there's not as much on it. But usually I use either Epidemic Sound or Artlist. And, it's a budget thing at the end of the day. Not everyone has the money to pay a subscription for that, but it just saves you from so much hassle because there's good music there. Like there's art, like especially these days, the same way it's a lot cheaper for us to be videographers than it was 20 years ago. Same goes for musicians. Like everyone now can make music, like professional level music in their basement. So for that reason, that means that royalty-free music really has come a long way in the last, 10, 20 years where it used to be crap. And now it's pretty decent. And so you can find good tracks. And I use those 2, especially I love that they have stems. Like when you download a track, you can either just download the full mix or you can break it up per instrument. So if you want to remove the voices, if you want to remove an instrument that's just a bit too intense, you can do that. So I really like playing with that, and it obviously helps a lot for sound design. And yeah, these are my 2 main sources. There's one that I used a few times. It's called Licked, and that one has mainstream music on it, and you can buy a license at a very reasonable price. Depends on the track, but I think it's between $15 and $50 maybe per track, and you can use it for one video. But they don't have every mainstream track, but they have they've got Justin Bieber, they've got Drake, they got all these guys, but maybe 3 tracks from each. So there's options.
How does Licked work when you upload that video to Instagram? Like, how does it know that you have the license? You have to fill it out warm?
Well, it's more for YouTube because Instagram, I don't think it would be an issue anyway. But on YouTube, once you upload your video, you have to make it unlisted because sure enough, you'll get a copyright claim straight away. But in the description, you have to add that track's ID and then a little like promo line that they make you add for links for the platform. But then you send them an email. You send an email to support saying, like, yeah, I've uploaded my video. Here's the link. And then they make sure that you put the right thing in the description, and then they release the copyright straight away. I think they're based in in the UK or in Sweden, something like that. So depending on what time of the day you're doing it, it can take a few hours. But it always took. I've probably done it like 5 times, and it was always the copyright claim was always taken off within the next like 12 hours or so. So, and from then on, no issues because they have the licenses basically.
So for me, when I'm doing client work, I'm always using royalty free. In the past, I've been told, oh, we're just using this for internal. You can use a mainstream song, and then they always end up posting it online. And then there's always issues, and then I have to re-edit because, as you know, every editor's greatest fear is when you get that call and you're like, oh, can we just change the music?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, everything is matched up to that music, so I'm re-editing the whole video. So rule of thumb for me is if it's corporate and that, I'm using royalty free.
Do you get them to approve the music before you start editing, just in case you have that conversation about them not liking the music, or do you just go with what you feel is right?
No, I'll sometimes send a couple examples, or I'll go with what they've already done in the past, and I'll ask them kind of what genre are they looking for. Some of them really trust me, so they just let me go, and it's carte blanche. So that's not that bad. I mean, I haven't had it happen to me too often where it's like, hey, can you change all the music? It does happen from time to time. But usually I'm pretty good. Usually I'm pretty good, especially for corporate stuff. You got to just get the feeling of the event or of what you're pushing, right?
Yeah. So what platform do you use?
I use Artlist before. I have Envato. I've actually even used Motion Array. I've used some of their music too because I already have it for subscription. I'm already using all the sound effects. So I do use Motion Array quite a bit too, and it's okay for corporate stuff. It's fine. It's great. Even for some like quick intro stuff, like when you go on the templates, they suggest some music. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it'll give me some other suggestions after, and I'll grab one of those. But it's nice being in one place. That's what I really like about it. But I have used other subscriptions too. Now for socials, kind of like you, depending. So say if I'm doing a gym video and it's just for Instagram, we're not trying to make money off it, nothing like that. What I'll do is I'll find some catchy songs, and my workaround is I'll actually do a screen recording. So you know how like this song got 8,500 views and it's really trendy right now. So I'll do a screen recording of that song. Then I airdrop it to myself, and then I'll edit using that version of the song, it's a pain. But I don't know any other way to do it fast and efficiently. Like I've tried screen recordings on my computer. It's very similar. Sometimes the audio is great, sometimes it's not. But on my phone, it's pretty money. Like it works really, really well.
But are you talking about like a track that's been sort of edited, funny, like that's specific to Instagram, or is it just like any mainstream track that's just trending at the time?
A little bit of both. Sometimes I'll grab that actual funny audio or that trendy audio that maybe has like a quote before it and then the music gets in after. I've done that for gym videos. Actually, I just released a couple on my socials for myself. But that's the only way that I'm doing it. Like you ever, in any other ways, or have you ever done that?
Well, I used to do that because originally Instagram, you weren't too sure about bringing in your own audio in there, as in your own music in there. So what I would do is screen record. I would go on Instagram and go as if I'm creating a reel, and then just put the music track and screen record it. So then use it in my edit as basically as a guide track, so that I can edit. But then when I export my video, I would export it without the music and then upload it to Instagram, add the music from Instagram instead of me, putting it with the video. So that way I knew that I wouldn't get in trouble because the music is literally from Instagram. But then Instagram sort of evolved into just recognizing that if I put, like today, I posted like a video with a Travis Scott music track on it, and Instagram just recognizes that it's sicko mode, and they will write it as if I picked it. Like they'll just do that by themselves. So as long as you're using a track that's in their library, that they have like a licensing deal with, there won't be any issues. The worst case that can happen, I think, is that they'll say that your video has been blocked in Russia. But other than that, you're fine.
That's the go-to. Your video is blocked in Russia. Yeah.
Yeah. But to answer your original question, what I do, I've got like a third-party app where you can download videos from YouTube, and I'll use that to download the music track. Like I'll download like an MP3 version of the track that I want to use, and then that way I can edit it sort of the way I want. Because what was annoying with the original way that I was doing it, just using the track from Instagram, is that if you want to edit it a bit, like if you want to have a pause in the middle, or lower the audio so that someone can talk, then you couldn't really do that. So that's why I like just doing it all in Premiere and just output the music with the video. And so for that reason, yeah, I download the music track usually from YouTube.
Well, honestly, that's why I do it too. I want control of the audio. I actually use KeepVid for that to download my stuff. I'm not sure what you're using, but that's what I use for YouTube.
Mac X Video Converter Pro. I actually did a YouTube video about it, so I should know.
There you go. But what I like, honestly, about Instagram is like some people do some really good music edits. Like they'll add a nice reverb, or they'll slow it down, or they'll mix in like an acoustic version of the song, and then all of a sudden there'll be like a quick riser, and then it comes back into the original one. So for quick reels and that, like it saves me a lot of time. And it's trendy. It's trendy. Now, when I use it, I know someone else owns the copyrights. I know someone else is getting paid, not us. But it helps. It helps get your name out there. It helps with the reels. It helps showcase your talent. So it's definitely a quick process, and it's good. It's trendy. Like everyone seems to be going that way anyway. At least on the short form content.
I don't know about you, but I always see these videos come up on my timeline where you see you see like it's split in two basically, and you get the video and you hear obviously all the sound design that comes with it, but then on the lower half of the screen you see the timeline, and you see all the edits that went into the sound design specifically, and it's like, wow, they're so hardworking. I know I had the patience to do all that.
I'm like, my timeline has never looked like that. Maybe my upper one, but my bottom one on sound never looked like those, man.
Yeah.
Like 45 tracks, the guy scrolling all the way down just so you could see all his audio tracks. You're like, wow.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, it is a humbling experience to be on Instagram sometimes. But it is inspiring as well. I don't think I would be doing as much sound design if it wasn't for social media.
For sure. But now they say that like most people watch social media videos with the sound off.
Yeah, well, that is tricky, because a lot of people, you put so much effort into it, and then people will just put captions and stuff because they know that people don't listen to the audio. So like, what's the point of all that effort? Sometimes I feel like maybe I should not put captions on my videos to make sure that people listen to the audio. You know what I mean? Like obviously when we post clips from our podcast, then it's not like we're using music, so you definitely can use the captions. It doesn't hurt anything. But if it's a reel of some sort, like something that's a bit more dynamic, and you have music and sound effects and all that sort of stuff, you obviously want to push people to use the audio. But I don't know. It's the world that we live in. You never know.
I'm hoping it's just a trend, right? All these captions, and eventually we go back to horizontal video, maybe, and no captions like it used to be. I like that better, but I mean, hey, people just want information quick nowadays. They want to be able to see it as fast as they can. They want to. Their attention span is, you got 5 seconds to hook somebody, and that's it.
No, I don't think. I don't know about horizontal videos, but I think captions will definitely go away at some point. Like at some point, we'll look at old videos and go like, man, we were really intense with these captions popping at the screen nonstop. It's like, how hard is it to just, isn't it easier to listen than to read? Like last time I checked, like, I don't know. So, but it's all context, obviously. But But I think it's just going to be eventually a lot easier to listen to videos in any sort of type of situation, and captions will fade away at that point. But what do I know? Do you use them in all your videos or not?
Captions?
Yeah.
Just the videos I do with you. No, honestly, just
Because by accent, is that what you're saying?
That's it. It's your Australian accent. No, it's more, I use them more for social clips. Like if I'm doing a video, I mean, depending, if I'm doing a video with a quote and it makes sense, then I'll do it. But if it's like song lyrics and that, no, I'm not putting up captions. Unless it's a talking head or a motivational thing, I'm not adding the captions. Now, since we're talking about sports, obviously, right? We got to talk about when you're filming, you're getting that sound, like miking up players, trying to get some real sound, game sound from those mics. Now, when you're miking up guys, what kind of sound bites are you looking for?
It's actually funny you say that, because I did get a few sort of, body checked and tackles and things like that sound from doing that. But originally when I mic up a player, it's usually for having them talking to other players. So you want to mic up either the captain or whoever's the most vocal on the team. But you do get sounds from the game that you wouldn't get any other way. But depending on the sport, if it's football, the microphone's probably going to be very muffled because it's going to be inside the shoulder pads, and so it is what it is. But with basketball, sports like that, you can get pretty decent audio, and you'd be surprised how, like, I think I never broke a microphone with contact sports, but I broke 2 microphones doing basketball. So
really,
it's not. Yeah, and I think one was funny. It was like, I think like 2 minutes into the game, something like that. Just like a little bump on it was boxing out or something. Guy just sort of bumped him a little bit, and that was it. He was died, and it didn't die because the microphone died. But I could always record from just the actual, it was like the DJI mic, and it's the lapel that died, not the actual transmitter. So I fixed it that way, but then now the audio was coming from his back instead of the front. So for the voice, it wasn't great. Because I put it in the pocket at the top of the back there, in the sports vest thing that they wear underneath. So yeah, that wasn't ideal, but you're still getting great atmosphere though, and you can hear the refs as well, so that's interesting sometimes. Do you mic up players ever?
So I had in the past, we used to have they still have it at the skills contest for the Canadians. We'd mic up some guys, but you know how it is, like halfway during the contest, the mic falls out of its place. It's hanging out the back, just holding on by the wire. So then you got to kind of call the guy back over to the bench and rehook it up. So that's always the tricky part, right? Is to make sure that your equipment stays in place and stays where it's supposed to be. But I like miking up guys because you get that side of them you don't always see. Like you want to see them interacting with players, coaches. It's like during a game, it's cool to see them talk to other players and other teams, right? You get to see how their relationship is. Now, 9 out of 10 times you can't air that footage because there's too many bad words, and especially in an intense game. But every now and then you'll capture that moment of like a coach explaining a drill to a player. Like last year, Canadian Championships for Hockey Canada, we mic'd up one of their coaches, and it was really
done that a lot.
It was really neat to see how the coach explains. He was a defensive coach. It was really neat to see how he explained the plays to the kids, or how he motivated the kids, and you really get the sense of who's a player's coach and who isn't. When you mic people up, you get to see them in a different view, because yes, they realize that mic's on, but once the game starts, they forget that mic's on, and you got the little earbud in, and you're recording everything, and you're like in this different world. Like all of a sudden you're immersed in it. You're there. You're on the bench with them. You know what the play is. You know what they're doing on the power play. You know why Johnny's getting skipping a shift because he just got burnt the shift before, and what he didn't do right. So it's really cool to see that aspect of it. Now, what's challenging is after that moment, when you're done with it and you have that card and you have all that footage, it's like, how do you tell the story now? What story are you showing? You know, that's the hard part when you mic up a guy, because I feel like since I was there in those moments, I get too close, and then it's hard to cut away stuff because like, oh, that was a good moment. Oh, that was good what he said. And I find that part of it is really, really hard, and not everybody understands that until you do it. And it's like, okay, you came up with this great idea. We mic'd up a guy. We have these intimate moments. Now it's like, what makes a cut and what doesn't? And that's what I find really, really challenging.
Yeah, it's called killing your darlings. It's
Yeah.
so much of it that you want to use. But the good thing now with that is that because of social media, you can do your main edit and get rid of a lot of stuff that is gold but just doesn't fit into your story, and then use that extra stuff that you didn't use just as snippets on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. So it's never really lost if you want to, if you want to go down that route. It's like the director's cut in a way.
Exactly.
But I like from a storytelling perspective, like I really like miking up coaches, because I find it really helpful, especially like you said, if it's like a player's coach or a very vocal coach, because that way you get the speech in the locker room beforehand. And even sometimes I wouldn't be allowed in the locker room, but I can still record his audio. And so yeah, I would have that. And then in between, if it's hockey, in between periods, coach is addressing the players. And even during the game, sometimes he'll talk to a player or just things that will scream. So that can be basically the narration to your video. And then it's very helpful, way more than a player most of the time anyway, because players they'll address specific moments where the coach will have more of you talk about the game as a whole. So it'll be a lot easier to use him in the intro of the video, and then maybe you have a bit of a crescendo, like a bit of a, in the music where then you get another sort of motivational moment from the coach, and it ramps back up and the game starts again, things like that. So yeah, I really like you miking up coaches for that.
I find players are best being mic'd up is in warm-ups, because they're loose, they're having fun. You get to see the real version of them. Filming, like miking up pro players at a game, it's tough, man. They got a job to do, and depending on how the game's going too, it changes real fast. But warm-up, it's nice, it's easy, there's no stress for you, there's no stress for them. You mic them up before the warm-up, and warm-up's over, you grab your mic and you're done. And I find that's the best. And a lot of sports teams do that. A lot of pro sports teams do that now. They'll mic up so-and-so for warm-up. And I find that's a trendy thing. But I find it's the easiest way to get access to these players up close and get to know them. Now, I think people just do it because it's easy, honestly. And you're not too intrusive this way. You get like a lot of the teammates, and they kind of play it up a little bit more since it's warm up. Where in a game, you can't really. You don't have, you're focused on winning and losing.
So what other microphones other than miking up and lapels and all that? Like, what type of microphone do you typically use when you're filming sports?
So I have a shotgun mic on my Sony that I'll use, or if I'm doing like mic'd up guys, I'll use my DJI set. For broadcast, now we put a shotgun mic on my broadcast cameras, but like I said, I'm so close to the ice that the sound is bouncing off, so it's not really good. There has been times in the past where we threw microphones on the benches, hooked up to like it was kind of like a GoPro at the time, like a camera, a stationary camera that's going to stand there, try and catch audio on the bench. But it wasn't really useful. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of clips that you can't really use. And plus, guys, especially in hockey, guys are jumping in and off the bench. So of course that microphone's getting knocked a lot and you're not getting the cleanest audio. So it's tough for hockey. Other sports, I think it might be a lot easier. Like if you go to tennis games, there's mics on the nets, or golf. There's always a mic right at the tee box that catches that swing perfectly. So hockey's kind of a bad example where Other sports, it's set up where you can have your mic right there and you get that audio perfectly.
Well, I think we spoke about that in another episode about audio equipment, but like I'm a big fan of XLR shotgun mics, because once you go XLR, you never go back. It's the quality is just much cleaner, more dynamic. There's a wider range of, in your sound. Like there's just a lot of details that you don't get with a more budget sort of Rode, stereo pin. I don't know what it's called, but like those typical shotgun mics. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that, and it helps capturing like better ambient sound that I can then use in my sound design. Because if your mic's not that great, then everything's sort of mushed together. You know what I mean?
So when you're going into a project, right, and you're picking your music for sports, like you have in mind, like I want this to be a fun video, I want this to be serious. What's helping you get in the mood to pick the music that goes with your edits?
Yeah, it's definitely about the mood. It's definitely about the type of video that I want to, do I want to go with something super dramatic, or do I want to make it sound very exciting, maybe like sound almost like a chase, or do I want, like you said, just something fun, just like hip hop, just enjoying like a workout type soundtrack. So yeah, I start from the mood that I'm going for, but at the same time, sometimes I love like watching videos that just go rogue with their music choices. Like they'll have like opera or whatever, like something completely out there, and it just works. But that's something that sometimes like you probably have to know beforehand before you start filming. I mean, so that you're filming accordingly. Like if you're obviously gonna go with something super slow, then you want to be recording at a high frame rate. But yeah, and obviously it depends on the client. Like if you're doing client work, then you gotta be, because I can have very creative ideas, but often the clients are not as creative as you are. So you have to make sure that you're not going too far, into your own sort of little thing. That's why like getting the music approved before you start editing can be the right thing to do. It's tricky, because if you're dealing with people that are not very creative, they won't see the value in a song unless you actually put some visuals to it. Like if it's not like a super popular song, or it's not a song that's their style of music, they'll probably just shut it down because they don't like the song for what it is as a music track that you would listen in your car or whatever. They'll just reject it. But if you put it to a visual and you make it look good, and then they like it. So it's that thing where, do I propose it knowing that they probably won't like it because it's not their style of music, or do I just start editing something and then show it to them? But then I might be working hours on this, and then they still don't like it, and then I did all that for nothing. So it's always a bit of a gamble with that, but yeah, it depends on the complexity of the edit. If I know that I'm going to be like working a lot, and it's going to be a complex edit that's all based on the music track, then I'll definitely get it approved first. But if not, I'll probably do like a rough cut and then say, do you like this? And then if they say yes, then I go into taking it to the next level, basically.
It takes me a long time to really pick a song, I find. And I'll search YouTube, and I'll have my idea or my sport in mind or my edit in mind, but like to find the right track, it's tough, man. Like I probably waste a lot of time listening to other audio. And the thing that does help though is like sometimes I'll find a great song and I didn't use it for that project, and I'll bookmark it and I'll be like, okay, later on I'll use this for a video, or I'll get an idea for another video. Now, you and I have been in situations where when you work for a team, the marketing comes to you and they say, okay, this is the song we're using.
Or like
you don't like that song. Okay. There's been times where we didn't like the songs and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe we're using this song.
Yeah.
And then it was our job, which was tough, is to make that song work with the edit. And you have to basically see their vision. And that was tricky. Like, I remember spending hours and hours trying to say, like, how am I going to make the song work? How am I going to make the song work? And then finally, once you get in the rhythm of the edit, you make it work. How did you deal with those situations? Because you dealt with them, I think, a little bit better than I did.
How so?
Because you never seemed to show any stress when we worked together. You were always like, oh, okay. Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, I'll stay till 4 a.m. Okay.
It's true. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's about storytelling. So as long as the story fits the mood of the track, it all works. So it's like, yeah, it's probably a bit of a slower song that I would have picked, and yeah, it doesn't allow a lot of room for a high pace, fast pace, high intensity action. But then you just tell the story another way, and then it works. It works that way. But it's also about educating your clients or the team that you work for about what a good music track can do for video. Like I remember I had this conversation with so many teams or managers that I've worked with in the past, where if I put like a music track in back then, like it was probably like videos were a bit longer. Like it wasn't, now it's all 45 seconds to a minute max. But back then it was more like 2 to 3 minutes. And they will always want to cut the part in the middle where the song like slows down. They was like, oh, let's just like keep it high intensity the entire time because it was a hype reel. But I'm like, yeah, you need, and I say that with visuals as well, and because it's the same debate when it's time to show like content of the team doing bad, like getting scored on, for example. It's always a no. Like, no, we can't show our team getting scored on. Like, this is our video. And the same with music. It's like we can't have like a boring sort of slowed down part. Like it's all about hyping people up. But I'm like, you need the lows to appreciate the highs. So in music, that means like you need a part of the track where everything sort of slows down, and then the action's a bit more like whether it's slow motion or there's not much happening, or it's more color of the crowd, of whatever the case may be, and then boom, you wrap it up with more action. But you get a bit of a break in the middle so you can absorb what just happened before, anticipate what's coming, and then the second part of the video is much more it's much more engaging, and you appreciate it a lot more. And the same thing visually, it's like you need to see the team struggle so that you can appreciate when they're doing good. If all you see is goal, 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 I'm like, all right, I guess we're scoring all the time now. It just devalues the whole thing. So I approach music the same way, basically. To answer your question, that was a long answer to your
No, it was good though. It was thorough. You know what was nice when we were working with the sports team is you had access to the color commentary. Now, when you're on your own, you don't always have access to that color commentary.
Yeah.
So when you have the color commentary saying like goal for this person or hit for that person, those are great sound bites that you can add into your videos, where you and I now filming, say, amateur sports or stuff that's not as high profile or on TV, you don't have access to those. So that makes a big difference in pro sports videos, I find, is having that access. Now, when you're doing an edit on your own and you're using those things, it's kind of the same thing. You're going to get copyright issues.
Yeah. But how does it work? Like for people who don't know, like who've never worked on a professional sort of team, how does that process work? If you're editing a video for the Canadians, like are all the games like pre-recorded on servers and you just go easily access like commentary? Like how does that work?
Yeah, that's pretty much it now. No, so yeah, they have a server, and when you have your clip, you'll have 8 audio tracks, and depending on how you programmed it, you'll have like the ambient track, the crowd noise, and then you'll have different TV channels where you have the tracks of them or the radio stations embedded in that. So you can just mute and pick what track you want. Now there's sometimes where you need to go and look for a clip or reach out to certain people to find a certain sound bite. But yeah, most of the time it's there. At least when I was grabbing the clips, it was accessible. So, and then once you open up that box, right, and you start using the color commentary all the time, especially in Montreal, you have to be conscious of are you using French or English also, because the team is bilingual and Montreal is bilingual. So you have to make sure that part's a little tricky because sometimes I would find a soundbite where I'm like, oh, I really like this one, but I already used a couple English ones already, so I'll use the French color commentary. But the French color commentary was always way, way more exciting. Like when they yell goal or but, they go nuts, where the English one was always very more reserved, I found.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, you too, when you were editing stuff for the Canadians, you would use the color commentary.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, especially in the middle. Like that, my thing is usually I either go, like if I'm using like a mainstream music track, when there's lyrics, I'll go, full sound with the music, but then I'll use like an instrumental part in the middle usually, which we call the bridge in the biz. And I'll use the instrumental part to put all the commentary, and usually in the intro as well if there is a bit of a slow build in the intro. But now I like to, because you don't have that type of time, I'm not doing a 3-minute video, so I like to edit the music tracks so that I can put sort of instrumental parts where there wasn't, and use the commentary. Especially with hip hop, it's probably a bit easier sometimes because there's going to be a section where there's a full loop of that beat, and you can just use that part wherever you see fit. And yeah, I like to be my own sort of audio, music producer, if you will. I'm like Timbaland.
It's interesting though how you mentioned it before. Like our videos used to be the whole song.
Yeah.
Like if the song was 4 minutes, our video was 4 minutes. And now, like there's all these nice little tools that pop up in our softwares now, like the remix tool where you can put a song and you have a 4-minute song. And you're like, hey, let's cut it down to 45 seconds. Yeah, you still have to make some tweaks, but it saves you a lot of time now. Like we used to have to cut songs and put crossfades or put a sound effect in to kind of hide our cut. Now it's a lot easier. So what tools are you using to help out your audio?
To be honest, I don't really use any of them. I still do it myself. I don't know why. I'm just, I don't know if it's laziness that I never learned how to use the new ones, but and also like I'm pretty good. I got a pretty good ear for music. Like as a kid, I used to just, listen to a music track and replay the melody on the piano. So I'm not a musician by any means, but I do have, it's easy for me to recognize where to cut and things like that so that it's seamless. I don't have to use like cross dissolves to sort of hide imperfections and stuff. So, and I worked a lot with musicians as well. And so that's probably helped. We worked on a lot of music videos and things like that. But anyway, I try to do it myself and use different effects sometimes, maybe like a low pass to like adjust or add some echo, things like that, and just sort of make it my own. But I don't do that with every video, but especially if there is commentary, because the idea is that I don't want to have to take down the volume of the music every time someone says something, because I want the intensity to stay up there. So you find other ways to make the voice being make it easy to understand what they're actually saying. So first of all, you use very short sound bites. And second of all, you go with instrumental parts. Like you don't want someone talking over someone singing. And then you can use effects like a low bass, which will make everything a bit lower. And the voice usually will be sort of a higher range. So it'll be easier to hear. So yeah, I sort of play with these things. And I find it just, I don't know, for my own sanity, I like to just do it myself.
Well, I'm not as musically inclined as you. So I'm using Remix. I'm using auto ducking. I'm using whatever tools I can to help me. I'll use a crossfade, and I'll use a good sound effect to hide that crossfade if I need to. But that's something that I found I've always struggled with is finding that exact beat. Like, yeah, I see the waveforms. I could see it on the timeline. I can cut it like that. But sometimes, because I used to have to do it a lot for TV commercials. Like say when the festivals were coming to town and they'd be like, here's 4 songs, blend these together. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and then some of the songs were like, yeah, you have 30 seconds, blend 4 songs. That's 8 seconds per song. Okay, go. And you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Or you have a little snippet. So that's
over too.
Yeah, exactly.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
Buy your tickets now. So that's when I would cheat, and I'd use like a quick sound effect or a swoosh. So that way the viewer knows, okay, the song changed. That swoosh is how the song changed. I would cheat that way. Now it's not sports; it was more TV commercials. But we did, we did do sports commercials like Harlem Globetrotters or the Raptors are coming to town. Yeah. So
Boxing, UFC, things like that as well.
yeah, but UFC, they provided you with mainstream music.
Yeah. Well, I think they provided you with like a blank version of their thing, and
Yeah.
you just had to do like the local version of it.
So it was pretty easy to do the UFC stuff. They came prepared,
Well, it's mainly because any type of show, it's the same thing with music. When you're traveling all around the world, you can't rely on all these strangers that you don't know to promote your own thing. So you create a template that you know is good, and then you make them sort of convert them to their language, their venues, their dates, all that sort of stuff. But the core of like the video itself remains the same everywhere. So that way you have some sort of quality control going, which is fair enough. But it's pretty boring for people like us.
Yeah. Now when you're filming UFC, right? It's tricky with the music that's playing in the background.
Oh, from that perspective. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, same with basketball and things like that. Like, it's hard to definitely, like, I was filming at a basketball game the other day, and I was trying to record myself talking to the camera. And I was like, first of all, this is very loud. But most importantly, like, am I doing all this for nothing? Because is my video going to get flagged because Jay-Z's doing his thing in the background? Who knows? But there are tools to get rid of it.
But does it work? Because I like when I've tried them before, there was no magic tool that boom got rid of everything 100% for me. Is there something new out there that?
Well, that the one that I use, it's called Lala something. Yeah, Lalal. Sorry, LALEL .ai, and I've a shameless plug. I've made a video about it in the past as well. But that one's actually pretty good. Like the game that we went together was a basketball game when we did the video about the A6700. I used it. Yeah, you were filming me talking about the camera and what we're doing there, and that was during warm up. There was music, very loud music behind me, and I thought, let's see what the noise, reduction thing can do, and wasn't great. And noise reduction often makes your voice very muffled and a bit weird, sometimes robotic if you really try to push it. So that wasn't really working. But then I tried Lalal.ai, and it just removed the music completely. And to be honest, my voice wasn't that much different. Like, it's not like it totally changed the nature of my voice. I was like, this is actually like, it was good to the point where I had to re-add some of that noise just so that it doesn't look weird, because I'm in this environment where there's people playing basketball behind me and there's just silence and my voice is just there. The only thing you hear is like, this is weird. We need a bit of that noise back. It was at that level. So yeah, there are tools now. Obviously, I'm guessing since AI sort of started, that weren't available before, that can do a decent job.
I just assumed it's because I was your cameraman and I'm so good at audio. That's why I no background knows. And but thanks for bursting my bubble.
Well, probably 60/40.
So we'll start wrapping it up. But your go-to for subscriptions, Artlist, Epidemic Sound, audio?
Yeah. For audio, definitely, in terms of music and stuff. And like you said, Motion Array, Motion Array, Artlist are all the same sort of company. And so I'm not sure if everything you get in Artlist, probably not the music. Yeah, I don't know. Can you get music in Motion Array?
Yeah, that's where I get some music there.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's all the exact same tracks or if you get, less or different ones. But
do you still have a promo code? Do you still have a promo code with Motion Array?
Yes, I don't think it's a promo code per se. I think it's just if you use my link, you get with Motion Array, I think at the moment you get $50 off. With Artlist, I think you get the two. If you get like an annual subscription, you get 2 extra months for free. So we'll put everything on YouTube anyway. We'll put in the description of the video. But yeah, I do have some goodies with these two sites. Not with Epidemic Sound, unfortunately. I would love for them to reach out to me and
now's your chance.
Something that I can give people. But no, these are the ones. I was actually going to ask you a question as well. Like when, and we do have when we wrap up.
Is now our Q&A session? Now's our Q&A.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because I was at basketball the other day, and someone that we both met the last time we were there, he was one of the guys who wrote us a question. So it was like,
oh, really?
Now that I know that people are actually into this, I got to make sure we answer that. But we did actually answer his question in the last episode, but which wasn't out by the time I saw it. But anyway, I digress. I was going to ask you, like with mixing, like, because obviously you can mix with your headphones and it sounds great, and then you listen to it on speakers and it sounds differently, and then you listen to it in the arena and it sounds horrible. So how do you mix your videos? Like, what's your go-to in terms of making sure that it's going to sound great for everyone?
So it's funny you say that. So back with the Canadians, we made a preset for the bowl, because that would be a big challenge. You would listen to it in your office and it sounded perfect. You're like, okay, good. And you listen to the bowl and it was completely different. So we were lucky. We work with audio technicians who would help us and helped us create that preset that we drop on our audio to make sure it was in the bowl. Now, for me personally, when I'm mixing stuff, say for the web and all that, I go with my ear. Like I check my levels. So like I'm never going to go over -18 just to make sure. But you have to understand, in this social media world, everybody's audio is going to be different depending on what their setup is. So you just make sure that you stay in proper standards, make sure nothing's peaking, make sure that you can hear the commentator or hear that sound effect just enough. And I'm not afraid to show some of my video ahead of time and get their opinion on it also, because sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be like, oh yeah, it's good. And then I'll play it for someone else and they're like, oh, I didn't hear that. So it's really touch and go, I find. But like I just stick to my norms and make sure that I have nothing peaking. I'll put a compressor on top and make sure that nothing goes over -18.
Well, the same. Well, I'll use a compressor, so that way I'll probably, because what we used, like I used to work for TV, so like there was like a certain limit that you weren't supposed to go higher. But for social media, there's no such thing, and everything's pretty volume's pretty up there. So I'll try to match it, but then I'll put a hard limiter to make sure that it doesn't go above and doesn't clip or anything like that. But in terms of like listening and mixing, like everything, like the music versus the sound effects versus the voice, that's where it's really tricky, because it depends, like you said, like speakers, bowl, headphones, earphones, it's all different. Phones itself, like the phone speaker, it's all different. So like which one do you edit for? So my thing with social media is that I try to edit for the most common audience. So if I look at my analytics, like most people are watching, maybe not YouTube. YouTube is actually changing a lot. Like I think it depends on your content. I think for my content, I've got a lot more people watching it on a computer than for someone who's vlogging, for example. But still, I think phones are the main way of consuming my videos, and especially like, Instagram, like forget about it. It's all phones, obviously. So for that reason, I often do my final mix, like I'll edit with speakers, but the final mix I'll actually listen to with just the Apple earphones, not these big boys, just the small white ones, because I found that this is the most common thing. Like most likely that's how people are gonna be listening to my video. So I'll edit and do everything with my speakers, but then at the end I'll listen to it with these earphones. And if I find that with the earphones, what usually happens is that the music's too loud, or some sound effects are too loud, I'll take it down so that someone listening to my video with earphones is not going, "Ugh." It's just a normal sort of experience for them because they're my main audience.
What I used to find challenging is when you add a voiceover in, or like, someone talking in your clips, because some people's voices their waveforms are thinner. So I would have to thicken them up a bit. Where music, if you look at the waveforms, they're always thick. Where voices were a lot thinner. So you want to get that thicker waveform. So when I was doing TV commercials, I was pretty lucky. I had 2 or 3 voiceover people, and I created presets, one for each person. So before I mixed the audio, I would set all my levels, and then on their audio track, I'd add my preset to thicken up their voice, and then I'd make my final. And that really helped me, and that helped audio for in the bowl during sporting events.
I think you did a voiceover for me once.
I did a voiceover for you?
Yeah, I think it was a Britney Spears commercial.
Yeah, it sounds like me. I did do a couple of voiceovers though. When we were stuck, sometimes I would do a couple English voiceovers here or there. But I hated the sound of my voice on the. Is that it for all the questions, or is there any more?
Well, that was my personal question. Now I'm gonna.
Oh, that was your personal question.
Yeah. Now find the public wants to know from you. Well, actually, there's someone reached out asking tips on using manual focus with a zoom lens. Do you use manual focus at all? And if so, how do you do it?
So during the hockey games, I'm using manual focus.
Okay.
One of the easiest ways to do manual focus, actually, for the camera that I have for broadcast, is I'll zoom in all the way to the far end, focus in on something, and then you zoom out, and everything else is pretty much in focus after that. Now, when you get a guy that comes too close to you, then you have to reset your focus.
And that's on the cinema lens, though. Like,
yeah,
you did that with your Tamron.
No,
it wouldn't work.
No. On my Tamron, like on my Sony, I'm going to say 90% of the time I'm using the autofocus because it's so good. The only time I'm using manual focus if I want to really control that rack focus, or if I have, like, I'm trying to set up a shot. Sometimes during a game, I'm not focusing on the guy who's trying to score the goal. I'm focusing on a certain player, and I want to get a nice shot of that player. That's when I'm using the manual focus. Or if I'm going to the bench and I want to pinpoint certain guys at certain times, that's when I'm using manual focus. If not, 90% of the time, I'm using the autofocus. And the only reason why I'm using the autofocus is because it's so good on these cameras. 5 years ago, I didn't like these cameras. I was using a regular video camera. We were using EX1s, EX3s, because the autofocus was good. These were nightmares with the autofocus back then. So it's changed a lot, and it's gone so much better. So 90% of the time, I'm on autofocus.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. The only times where I'd like to switch it up is because sometimes, because there's so many players in the frame, autofocus might jump from one player to the next at the wrong time. So being in manual prevents it from doing that, and make sure you've got the focus on the right player, especially on this potential to score or to do something important. Like you don't want that shot to be ruined by autofocus. So I try to use it a bit more, but it's all about trusting yourself and using tools like focus assist and things like that just make it a lot easier as well. All right, one last one.
One more thing. It's funny, but like it took me a while to say out loud that I'm using autofocus. It was like you were ashamed if you used autofocus before, and like you didn't want to tell anybody. Like, did you try the new Sony camera? The autofocus is great on it, because we're supposed to be these professionals, and you're like, no, I just manual everything. And now I've changed. Like I'm more like, yeah, I use autofocus. Why not?
Well, you're right though. Like back then, professional cameras, like they were professional, but like the auto settings were crap. Like those cameras, they weren't there yet. Like whether it's white balance or focus, whatever it was, it just the auto settings were just terrible. So you had to be using manual if you're doing anything like remotely professional. But yeah, now times has changed.
Now I can tell the whole world, put me on autofocus. That's it though. That's the only thing that's on automatic. Okay, guys, everything else is manual.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the same. But sometimes, what did I like? ISO. Like I always thought auto ISO was just the worst mistake in the world, and I still kind of believe it. especially, well, now I don't really have a choice because I film in Cine EI on my camera, so it shuts down all these things, so I can't use it anyway. But sometimes, like, I've used it a couple times and I was like, yeah, this is actually doing pretty good. It's especially when you're moving around and it's, the exposure is X on the left and Y on the right, like and it just adapts in real time. I'm like, yeah, it's not that bad. But depends on the context. Depends where you are.
I have trust issues, so I don't use the auto ISO. I have, you know what though? I have used it for photos. I have used it for photos. When depending on what settings you use, but I have used it for photos and it works really, really good. For video, I don't trust it. But I mean, it saves me because there's some times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to the side, so yeah, I'm changing the ISO manually, and I feel like there's an easier way, and that is the easier way. But
well, that's the thing. When you're outside, it's kind of okay, like depending where the sun is, in regards to to your camera, But when you're inside, like all it takes is like a window and then the whole thing is just completely messed up. So that's why I wouldn't use it all the time. But there's some situations where you're going from in the shade to out of the shade and you're turning in and sometimes it can actually do okay. I'm not saying it's perfect. But yeah, I don't know. Depends if you're going to use that sequence. If you can edit, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't take long you just put your ISO on some sort of wheel that you can just adjust as you go, and it's not that hard. But if you're going to do like a long sequence where you can't really cut, then sometimes auto is helpful.
I'm only emitting to autofocus today, okay? I'm not any other auto settings, all right?
Speaking of cameras, what's your dream camera setup? And it actually says in brackets, as unrealistic as possible.
As unrealistic as possible?
I'm guessing what he or she means is like if money was no object.
So obviously I think you want an Airy, right? You want an Airy and you want it to be like super stable, like something that they don't really offer, but you want those cinema lenses to be stable and you want a handheld area. I would assume that's what I'd want.
Yeah.
But realistically, I love the Sony A7S III. Like, that camera for me is I know you have the FX3, but for me the A7S III was the closest thing to it. It was the first time that I found a high quality, affordable camera, and I feel like that helped me. It opened so many doors for me. That one camera, because using broadcast cameras are great. The quality's there, the stability's there, everything's there. But to have an affordable camera that I was able to use for high quality projects, like that dream I feel like came true already, when with the A7S III, and now it's okay, where are we going next? Because the sky's the limit. Like, it's only a matter of time before these Sony cameras are 8K. Some of them are already starting, like mine is a 6K sensor, pushed down to 4K. But if the sky was the limit, I would definitely go with an Airy. And I've used Red before. Red was really cool, filming in 8K. There's also the Sony one that they use in the cinemas.
Venice.
So I would like to try one of those, but I think Airy, like, that's the name that I would go for if I was able to have any camera I want. What about you?
Yeah, probably same. I'm not like I'm a video editor before I'm a cameraman, so I'm not a gearhead. I'm not into like buying a new camera every 2 years or whatever. So I'm saying that in the sense that like I'm more about convenience than having the latest, hottest, piece of tech. So for that reason, I just love my FX3. Like, the only thing, if it could have internal NDs, that would be the perfect camera for me that I would keep forever until like 8K becomes a thing that you can't live without. But otherwise, yeah, I've got everything I need in my FX3 other than NDs. So if I could, that was my thing when I bought my camera. I was like, do I go with an FX6 because of the internal NDs? And they're great. It's not just internal NDs. It's the fact that they're a bit of an auto ISO where they adjust to the light and things, and then it's a smooth transition. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. but there's no stabilization. So I was like, do I prefer stabilization or internal NDs? And I went with the stabilization and also the body size and the price. But yeah, that to me is, if I can have 4K 120, no overheating issues, access to XLR microphones, internal NDs, stabilization, good autofocus, dual native ISO, I'm happy. Not that what I just said is nothing. Like, it's a lot of things, but yeah.
It's a lot of things if you know where we came from, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when I started working on Habs TV, I was filming with a HDV, which was basically a high definition mini DV, where we used to have to put the tape in and digitize it, and we were exporting TV commercials on Betacam. Like, we'd come light years from where we were, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And these little cameras are great. The only thing that I would like to see improved on the current models, I don't trust the LCD screens. Like, when I hooked up my external monitor, it looks so much better than the LCD screen that's on the camera. So I do feel like they're lacking a bit in that department, but the image quality on these little cameras are top notch. So, and like, you have the FX3, so you're Netflix approved, my friend.
Yes, in a cinema near you soon.
That's it.
All right, is this it?
All right, that's it for episode 6 of Game Day Glare. Ciao.
A lot of fun. Hey, yeah.
Take care.